Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx with me, Devika Devan. An op-ed in Newsx's sister newspaper, the Sunday Guardian, has viewers deeply troubled Bangladesh's chief advisor Muhammad Yunus. The article talks about India having to be cautious of Bangladesh, which is facing quote-unquote a meltdown due to Islamist extremism on the streets. Yunus is now covering it up due to his ties with the West and how Bangladesh is slowly turning into East Pakistan. Professor Nalapat has written this article, which predicts that Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor of Bangladesh, might soon leave the country altogether and settle in the UK, where he has deep financial connections. All of the above is based on certain facts. Yes, Bangladesh has seen coordinated attacks against Hindus since Sheikh Hasina was sent into exile and Muhammad Yunus took over. Yunus has re-established ties with Pakistan immediately after his takeover, even allowing visas and cargo ships to dock at Dhaka. So what exactly is Muhammad Yunus calling false and unsubstantiated? We take this conversation forward. We're with us Ambassador S.T. Muni, former diplomat. Professor Madhav Nalapat, who's written the article, is with us as well. Major General Brijesh Kumar, former DG for Military Infrastructure, with us, and Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, with us as well. Let me begin with Professor Madhav Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, I want to begin by understanding from your perspective, why do you think Muhammad Yunus has been rattled by what you have written, sir?
That is perfectly understandable, because unfortunately, I had deep respect for Dr. Yunus until he took over as advisor, and then I saw that he was just not doing anything about what was going on in Bangladesh. And he can deny what is taking place, but it's there in plain sight. It's there all over. There are multiple corroborated stories by credible individuals about what's happening there. And frankly, I was told 2 or 3 things which really, I felt I should therefore write about it in the Sunday Guardian. We are addicted to truth, the Sunday Guardian. We are addicted to exposing certain things. For example, the unpleasant fact that in 2022 April, when President Biden and then UK Prime Minister Johnson sabotaged the Ukraine peace deal, I pointed out that Ukraine is going to be the loser. Yes, of course, Russia, but also Ukraine. And so it has proved. The Ukrainians have paid a very heavy human cost for this particular war, which could have ended in 2022 itself, with frankly much more land in the control of Kiev than the situation now. So I want to say that a whole brigade of people have turned up to try and prove what is false wrong and what is correct false. You have these fact checkers, quote unquote. Most of them are basically peddling a particular narrative, and any narrative against that they say false, 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 false. You remember what happened, Devika, during COVID-19. I had very good friends of mine, including the US and other locations, Japan, who basically, and in India, who were very clear that COVID-19 could only have been a lab-developed virus. There was no clear indication of any animal vector. There was no indication of any other vector, except what happened was the existing SARS-1 virus was given spike protein and various other things. These things have not happened by accident. They've happened as a result of precision by the Wuhan Biological Laboratory. And my friend said, I said, why don't you point this out? Why didn't you write for Sunday Guardian? They said, if you write for Sunday Guardian, we'll be driven out of the medical profession. So they were forced to go along with what turned out to be a blatant lie. President Trump appointed as the National Institute of Health chief a known skeptic of this so-called, bat theory. A batty theory, if you ask me. And now, unfortunately, the facts have proved him right. Unfortunately, with so many people. And what has happened to all those who were busy saying false, 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 to any individual who even hinted that was a lab created, even as a possibility that was lab created? Where are Dr. Fauci? Where are all the other apologists for this specious theory that it came from a bat? So I want to say, Devika, I'm not surprised at this reaction by Bangladesh, but I'm sorry, but the facts are there in plain sight. If Muhammad Yunus only get out of his limousine, get out of his escort, and look around, he will see what's going on to Hindus, to Christians, to Buddhists, and to Muslims, not just those belonging to Awami League. I can understand Sheikh Hasina or some corrupt elements in the top leadership of Awami League being proceeded against. They were corrupt, there's no doubt about it. That's why, unfortunately, the social situation developed in the way it did. But the entire Awami League, a party which has got lakhs and lakhs of cadre, they have been banned, and you call this democracy? And what is happening in front of you, extremists all over the place, you look anywhere, you will see that this is going on. So I only want to say, Devika, I had immense respect for Dr. Yunus, and my only request to him, he please take a look around, see if we can check this ongoing violence, hatred, mayhem against Awami League people who are almost entirely Muslim, against moderate Muslims, against Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists. Please check what is going on in plain sight, Dr. Yunus. Please redeem the glorious reputation you once had. Thank you, Devika.
Absolutely. Professor Nalapat, I will come back to you in just a moment. Ambassador S.D. Muni, an important aspect here raised by Professor Nalapat in the article is where he talks about how Muhammad Yunus, who was supposed to be simply an interim head of the government, is now paving the way to continue holding on to that power by banning the entirety of the Awami League and not simply Sheikh Hasina. How is it that several countries who continue to give lectures on democracy to India, sir, have completely turned a blind eye when it comes to the situation in Bangladesh, where there is no election in sight? Master Muni, can you hear me?
Is it a question to me?
Yes, sir.
Will you kindly repeat your
Yes,
question?
Master Muni, I am pointing out an important fact that has been raised by Professor Nalapat in his article, sir, where he's spoken about how Muhammad Yunus has not only banned Sheikh Hasina but the entire Awami League. And this is, of course, in line with a thought that Muhammad Yunus wants to continue holding on to the power that he has no intention for a free and fair election in Bangladesh anytime soon. My question to you, sir, is why do you think several nations that give India lectures on democracy have decided to turn a blind eye to what's happening in Bangladesh?
Well, the question of international politics and the nations turning a blind eye to a particular event doesn't depend either on the truth or on objectivity. It largely depends on the interest and stakes being held by a particular country. And I think what Madhav has not written in his article, which I support the way he has argued, but there are many other things which he could have put in. And one is that he not only may go to the UK, he may as well go to the US. He was the one who was pushed in by the US for a long time. I know for sure that since 2009, the Americans were trying to have an interim government-led elections in Bangladesh because they did not want Hasina at all at any stage. Hasina, Awami League, Mujibur Rahman, they had all come at defying the US intervention when Bangladesh was created. Don't forget it. So since 2009, they have been trying. And in fact, I have done an article for a diplomat in which I say that it is not only the internal revolt against Hasina. Madhav is right in saying that there was corruption, inefficiency in the Hasina government. But that revolt was fanned up. That fire was fanned by the US. It was supported by the US. Therefore, he may not only, and I can give you several evidences of that, perhaps we don't have time for that kind of a discussion, but because of that, he can even go to the US. Now, he has in his Twitter denied that he has any stakes in the UK. Please ask him what he was doing as a chancellor of the Glasgow University. From 2012 to 2018, almost 6 years, he was the chancellor. Was he not earning any money? Where has money been put? In the UK. Then he has what you call the Grameen America and the Grameen Foundation, which have deep stakes in the United States of in United Kingdom. Then he has some social businesses which have deep stakes in the United Kingdom. These are the evidences that he has stakes in the UK. Therefore, he may boldly deny, he has to deny, because it's a question of his credibility to continue. Then secondly, you are also correct in saying that why the other governments are not telling him. As I said, the other governments look on their own stakes. If the Americans have pushed him in, how will they say that you must correct yourself? And therefore, the whole Western lobby will support Yunus in any way. Secondly, Pakistan and China have their own interest and stakes in propping up Yunus, because they don't want Hasina, they don't want India's and Hasina's cooperation, which had continued for last more than 10-15 years. So they want to remove that regime, and both the Chinese and the Pakistanis have deep stakes in them. So the Americans have deep stakes in them, the British have deep stakes in Yunus regime, and the West has deep stakes in Yunus regime. Therefore, they would support him. And why would they? They don't lecture. You know, the international relations. Please, you must separate rhetorics from reality. The rhetorics should not be taken on the face value. The reality is always something different and in contrast to that. Therefore, my submission is that some of the aspects which Madhav has highlighted in his article are correct, and that's why Yunus was compelled to deny them. If he has to survive as the head of that government, and if he has any credibility to be saved within Bangladesh for his continuing, and that is the reason why he wants to prolong in the name of reforms. Now, the question of reform is also very critical. One of the reforms he has brought about is banning Awami League. But that reform and later prolonged elections have been protested by and objected to by the army, by the BNP, by the Jamaat-e-Islami, and by the new party. Almost everybody wants him to hold elections by December, before December. Why? Because they know that Bangladesh is not being governed properly, either administratively or economically, which are the critical factors. And I'm sorry to say that Yunus may be a great economist, but he is no administrator, and he has no political constituency within Bangladesh. So his capacity to govern, mobilize people for the right causes is extremely limited, and that's why Bangladesh is somewhat in a chaos as it is.
Okay, Major and Brijesh Kumar, bringing you into the conversation, sir, on the aspect of Bangladesh allowing itself to become subservient to the Pakistan army. Another point that has been raised by Professor Nalapat in his article, which is now has also been vociferously an attempt has been made to counter it directly by Muhammad Yunus and his office, where he said that Bangladesh maintains sovereign diplomatic relations with Pakistan in line with international norms and its national interests. What national interest, Major and Brijesh Kumar, does Bangladesh have vis-a-vis Pakistan, a country that committed the most heinous atrocities against Bangladeshis, against Muhammad Yunus's own people?
Well, Devika, that's the fallacy. Mr. Yunus is seeking power. His ambitions were always there. And therefore, when he left Bangladesh, or he was forced to leave Bangladesh somewhere in early part of the century, 2004-5, since then he had been thinking about. And now, having got a chance by means which are not so fair or dubious means, under any pretext, as we all know, international politics is murky. he wants to continue as the head of state. And all his maneuvering that we see is based on that. When the Democrats lost power, he possibly thought that he'd become an author. He rushed to the Chinese. Thereafter, encouraged the Pakistanis to do a whole lot of things. And then, of course, the moot point, a government which is interim in nature, a government which is caretaker in nature, talking about reforms, electoral reforms before he can hold election. That was his line of thinking till very, very recent, when the army actually boxed him in, or even the political parties thought otherwise. The events which happened about 3 weeks back, end of last month, are very, 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 very crucial. Imagine to keep the Americans happy giving a Rakhine corridor. And then the Chief of Army Staff, Wakil tells him, these are huge decisions. These are major strategic decisions. Can only be taken by an elected government. I suggest we have a government in place which is democratically elected by December or something, which can take such decision. The second point he made was, well, army has no interest in ruling the country. So made it very, very clear. Thereafter, of course, the Chhatra Parishad with the Citizen Party and the Jamatis and all got around together. And he also threatened to, I'll leave. Well, all is not very well in Bangladesh. So he's not leaving anytime very soon. So now he talks of elections between 2025, December and June. Let's see what happens. But certainly, all is not well. He's moving or leaving the nation, as Professor Nalapat said, quite a possibility in this kind of existing scenario. However, having said that, the issue of Pakistan coming and creating a big chaos for us, let's see. Yes, they had the Quartermaster General, hobnobbing with the ISI guys and the ISI chiefs coming over there, taking them around those areas closer to the border for, where probably airfield, Lal Munir Hat or something, where the airfield might come up. All these are news which are available, which are there in the open domain, and people can draw conclusions. But the fact is, Mr. Yunus is a smart aleck. He chose to reply to Professor Nalapat's article in an alacrity. It doesn't happen. He's the head of a state today, right? And he takes not more than 24 hours to repudiate it, in whatever manner he can. So yes, his ambitions are there. All is not well in Bangladesh. Let's hope. It's actually too important a nation for us in India to be just glossed over. It's a country which comes into our calculation of security and and communications in a great little manner, great way. So we have interest, and the government is holding itself for a variety of reasons which are good, not joining in the bandwagon. So as far as I see, things in Bangladesh are not very well right now. The relationship between the Chief of the Army Staff and the military, which says we ensure the rule of constitution in Bangladesh, whereas on the other hand, the advisor says this constitution also needs amendment and things of that sort. So let's see how it goes along. It's not very comfortable for us, but I'm sure time will tell. And we are in India are closely monitoring the situation and will take things up. And the worst thing for the Bangladesh people, the economy is going down. That's going to hit them. Imagine not being able to come to Calcutta or Bangalore or Chennai for your medical ailments for a poorer section of Bangladesh. It will hurt them. The textile will hurt them. So let's see, it's tough time, but we've got to hold our horses, and it's too close to us to be left to be allowed to drift. That's the point which I would like.
Okay, Jyoti, I wanted to build upon some of the points that have been raised by Mirjan Kumar when we talk about specifically Muhammad Yunus feeling a bit rattled when Indian media, several of which are also speaking about there being a growing rift between the Bangladesh Army Chief and Muhammad Yunus, and he has categorically come out to defend or present a counter narrative. So while one can argue that it seems as though Muhammad Yunus feels as though he's losing the narrative war, but largely the Bangladesh army chief who put Sheikh Hasina into exile is surely not going to be happy sitting there watching Muhammad Yunus, who was put there as an interim head of the government to make certain decisions vis-a-vis the economy, vis-a-vis how the country is to run in the absence of a democratically elected leader. That was his job. So clearly the Bangladesh army chief can't be happy that he's sitting there hobnobbing with the Chinese, hobnobbing with the Pakistanis.
Well, when you look at what Yunus has done, basically picked up an article from the Sunday Guardian and then talk about it. I mean, think of it like this, Devika, which head of state, which head of government does anything like that? I mean, think of the sheer lack of gravitas that this man, instead of thinking of governing the country, instead of whatever he might be doing in terms of reforming the electoral process, if that is what he is doing, although we do not know. I mean, his reforming the electoral system is basically banning Awami League, which he has done. So the thing is, you see, instead of that, this man is picking up, his people are scouring the internet, picking up articles. Okay, I think we should reply to this. I mean, is it the chief, whatever supervisor or whatever he is, he is the titular kind of head of Bangladesh. Is it his job? Think of in terms of lack of gravitas. This is an internet troll's job, internet or these fact checkers. I mean, this, even if you are going to counter something, you should leave it to the juniors, to the younger people, to other departments, to your communication secretary. You must be having, there is a press secretary. I mean, it is coming under his own name. It's like the PMO picking up, our PMO picking up one article in Bangladesh and saying, you are spreading false fake news. Can you imagine a serious country, a serious political figure ever doing something like this? I guess even Donald Trump will not do it, and he is definitely not serious when it comes to his interaction with others. Now, as for what the army is saying, it goes without saying that yes, the army is very, very unhappy. But the thing with Yunus is that he has tasted power. He definitely does not want to let go, as a result of which, and the army, particularly Waqaruzzaman, is dropping very solid hints that you should leave right now. But obviously there is a lot of now my worry is what is going to happen now is that there is this students political party. Now they have banned Awami League, and because they have the support of the State Department in particular, Yunus will literally get away with murder. So what he is going to do is that he will rig the election, he will ensure, unless of course the army intervenes or BNP really creates a major trouble for him, he is going to rig the election. He will ensure that this particular students party comes to power and makes him the president or whatever, if not prime minister, president and all, and he continues to stay like this. But you see, and I am worried that the US will allow this to pass, and the Britain and countries of the West, which all have been basically, which were ensuring that there was trouble against Hasina, all of them will come out and in support of him. So basically, murder of democracy, which took place on 5th August 2024. Now that will continue. There is no chance of any fair election in Bangladesh, and that is a worry, unless of course the army gets involved and there is a coup or something. But then when it comes to the US, it is very, very unhappy when it comes to coups. We have seen what has happened in Pakistan. One of the reasons why Pakistan keeps getting these democratic coups is because there are certain amendments and all in the US that will sanction Pakistan if there is a coup, and if something similar is going to happen in Bangladesh also. So army coup is going to be looked at very badly by the US. There will be trouble. They want Yunus to continue, and by hook or crook, Yunus is trying to ensure that he will continue, and that is why he is so upset with the article, because you see, it also feeds into the narrative that is playing out in Bangladesh that Yunus is going to run away. Okay, so that is what is making him very unhappy, but he is also simultaneously trying to create, I mean, if he has to stay, he has to stay quote unquote as a democratically selected elected leader. So,
Okay.
I think right now what is going to they are going to do is that they are going to rig the election, they are going to manipulate the election.
Okay, all right. On that note, I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast to take that conversation forward.